Hey, how you doing? I'm Brandon. I'm gonna do the tree diagram for you again. And I know you've already seen it in class, but it's so foundational to everything that we're doing here. And really, you don't have to use the tree if you have another model that captures it, but you really need to have something when you're meeting with someone that really captures the idea of idolatry and the idea of the gospel, and how we begin to move from idolatry to the gospel, something that gets down to the deeper motivations of the heart that a person has. So this is the tree. This is what we're going to walk through. I want to encourage you to practice this. This really is foundational, I'm telling you. So you don't have to use this just when a person's hurting, when a person comes to you, when you're having a really deep conversation. There's several different ways that you can use this. One is just to bring it to your house church, just to bring it to a discussion that you're having with someone. You can walk in and just kind of say, hey, this is something I'm wrestling through. I'd love to get your opinions and your impressions on it. Or to bring it to your house church and say, I want us to wrestle with this. Is this true? Is it not true? This is something that I'm going through as well. And what happens, and what I've found consistently, is that as we begin to walk through the tree, people are taking themselves down deeper all the way through and beginning to almost counsel themselves and to bring up the deeper issues of the heart. So you don't have to just use this. You can use it if someone's hurting and they come to you and you're having a longer conversation, or if you're discipling somebody. In that case, what I would recommend though is don't rush to the tree. I would listen and listen and listen. I would in my mind have kind of a mental framework of the tree, and I'm putting the pieces together for their tree as I'm listening. And I'm making sure that they feel heard, making sure that they have an opportunity to tell me everything that's going on. And then whether it's at the end of the first session or a later session that I have with people, then I'll usually introduce the tree. And what that does is it begins to make them consciously aware of the processes going on in their heart as they're going down this path. So let me draw it a little bit. You obviously have it right here. I don't always give the handout. For me, I typically like to draw, because when someone hands me a handout, I feel like it's formulaic, it's this or that. But if they're drawing something for me first and just saying, like, this is what I found to be true, typically I'll listen a lot more, and then you can always give a handout when you're going out that's a little bit more robust. So here we have this tree that we're drawing, and it's got its branches in it, and it has all its different things. And you really can start anywhere that you want with a person. There's no right or wrong place to start. Sometimes I start from root to fruit. Sometimes I start from fruit to root. So a lot of times I'll even start with the branches. This particular time I'll tell you from the fruit level. So what I'll say is, in our lives we have a lot of things where we realize it's just not working. I met with a guy actually yesterday, and he came in, and one of the things he said was just, I'm here because the way that I'm doing life, just something's not right. And so I'll start up there at the fruit level with him, and I'll just kind of explain the fact that in his life maybe he has exhaustion, fear, anger, kind of treating everything like it's a competition. Maybe there's sadness, or there's really any number of different things. Despair, it could be. It's in what ways is the way that you're living just not been good news and been going right. And so I'll start up there on that fruit level, and I'll say what's usually underneath it that I've found is that in our lives, each of us, it could be a million different things, but we have these idols that pop up. And so this would be your branch level, and it can be any number of things. Maybe it's your car, your job, and it's material possessions. Maybe it's relationships, your family, significant others. Maybe it's something totally different. It's success, just in general. It's all these different things that we look to. And like I said, there could be a million different things. Some of them are good. These all happen to be pretty good things, we would say. Maybe it's bad things. Maybe it's you've got an addiction, a dependence on drugs, alcohol, sex, pornography. It can be any number of things. And as you go, what happens is typically when we begin to make good things ultimate things, they become things that we just can't lose, things that we obsess over, things that control us, things that where maybe it's your job and you're sacrificing your family and everything else in your life to have it. And we begin to recognize, hey, this isn't right. But if you just get rid of one job and maybe you find one that you're able to do life better in other areas, or maybe it's something like pornography or sex and you're able to cut that out, you put the software on your computer and you do different things, and these are really good things. But what happens is if you don't get deeper than that, just another fruit will pop up. And so maybe now relationships goes. Tim Keller tells this story about this woman who wasn't a Christian, and she went in to see this counselor, and she just had a thing with guys. Like, guys controlled everything that she did. Guys were the one thing that just like consumed her. And what this counselor said was, you just need to stop with guys for a while, focus on your career. Make everything about your career. Be successful in your career. And this woman who wasn't even a Christian recognized the fact that this counselor's best advice was really to exchange a typical female god for the typical male god of job and performance. And so she started coming to church, and that's how she ended up finding Christ. But what happens is if we just fight on this level, John Calvin says our hearts are perpetual idol factories. We'll just replace one with another. So we have to begin to look deeper. And while there could be a million things here, I feel like there's maybe only a half dozen at this level where we have power, performance, comfort, control, approval. All these deeper idols that begin to speak to us. Why is it that your relationships are so powerful? Well, maybe it's because you're longing for approval. And so your friendships begin to mean the world to you because you're constantly looking for people to approve of you, to let you know that you're okay. And so while there could be a million of these and just a half dozen of those, I feel like there's really just one root. And that one root is unbelief. You could say misbelief. You see, each one of us have these deep questions within us. And I'll usually write these questions down for people to see. Questions we may not even know that we're asking all the time, but we are. We're saying, am I significant? Do I matter? Would it matter if I was gone at all? Am I lovable? Do I belong? Do I fit in? And am I going to be okay? Am I safe? Am I secure? Am I going to be okay? And what happens is each one of us is wrestling with these questions deep within us. They're just constantly going off. Am I significant? Do I matter? And what we think is, no. That's why the unbelief. We answer this question, no, I'm not significant, unless I get performance, comfort, control, approval. And then these are the ways that we look for getting those things. But the problem is, all this produces within us just this negative fruit. Really, I would actually say it's kind of a roller coaster. You could put positive fruits up here too, because when idols are performing, you feel like you're just on top of the world. When suddenly you're killing it at your job and you're just being super successful, you feel like the world is just like amazing. You're kind of floating on air and you're just filled with this pride. But then the second that it doesn't go, you just start coming crashing down. And so even when you're on those highs too, you still experience immense fear because you're thinking, boy, I gave an awesome performance this week or presentation this week. And like 7 people that are coworkers just came up to me afterwards telling me how great I did. But it produces this fear because your next one, you have to have at least 7, maybe 8, 9, 10 people tell you. And so you're on this roller coaster life where you're just constantly going up and down based on how your performance is or based on how your idol is delivering for you. So really you can see it where I will walk people through this, and then I'll start to just ask them questions. I'll share maybe one from my own life, but I'll ask them, what do they think theirs is? And if it's someone that I've been listening to for a long time, usually I can help spot it. If they really can't decide, I'll give them some of the handouts that we have that are helps for maybe the center trunk area. Maybe it's for this area. Usually people are pretty good at spotting these. This one, typically people get pretty good, but they need a little bit of coaching. In these questions, people usually are pretty quick to say which one they're asking. But if you want, you have the handout obviously right here that's all complete. And that's going to give people a number of different feelings. All of them really could be reduced to these 3. One of them. But underneath that root, maybe people feel worthless, which would be significance. Maybe people feel just unacceptable, which would be unloving, or that they're not lovable. Really, I begin to kind of wrestle. You can give them the handout and you can have them circle, highlight, go through it on their own, or you can just work with them right there on the spot and help them move. Ultimately, hopefully, from unbelief to belief, realizing that God has already answered each and every one of these questions, that we know the answer to these. And when we believe those, we then get His performance, His approval, His control, which is really the ability to trust. These things become just gifts, and then the fruit becomes, instead of exhaustion and having to constantly, every time you walk into a new room, prove yourself over and over again, you get rest. You get the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. No longer are you competing with everybody for the scarce resources, but instead you're just free to really love them. So that's the tree. I hope that helps. You're going to get lots of practice, I assume. I've found this is really incredibly helpful for people to begin to drill down into why they're doing certain things, and then to begin to realize, oh, this isn't good news, and how the gospel then is amazing, good news that's worth just selling everything to have, and that sets us free. So thanks. Hopefully that helps. We'll see you in class.